Hey there, I'm Caitlin Tate. Let's talk Conan. If you can't tell from today's title, Don't Blame Conan, which was a phrase coined by the Crimson Chin of late night Jay Leno, we're going to be discussing the documentary, Conan O'Brien Can't Stop. Not to be confused with Conan O'Brien Must Go, completely different vibe. Don't recommend you accidentally switch those. I remember when I first watched this a while ago now, it really put a hole in my heart. Because it very much feels like watching your father getting his ass handed to him after already falling off the podium. It's the worst hero's journey you could imagine, where, guy works really hard, goes on this quest, figures it all out, gets exactly what he wants, ends up at his dream job, and then it's just ripped beneath him from greed and a chin, and it's just heartbreaking to see the emotional results of that happening. I never try to put people up on pedestals. I don't really believe in that. But if there's one person in the entire world who I would put up on a podium, it would be Conan O'Brien. And to see him fall like that, it's one of the hardest things to watch, in my opinion. But I think this documentary offers a lot of insight to take socially and personally, and maybe even creatively. There's a lot of psychological factors that I really want to talk about because that's what I majored in. I studied community psychology and focused on trauma, but I love just every form of psychology. I love people, and I think this documentary is a great insight into Conan's mind. The way that he's able to create after being destroyed. Conan has an amazing ability to take anger and use it as a tool instead of a weapon. I think a lot of people, maybe me included, would take that type of anger and use it to just destroy, just ruin everything and scream and yell, holler, punch walls, sit on our asses and decay. But what Conan managed to do with the help of an amazing team of writers, crew, Sona, Andy, his family, Liza, he was able to get up and start creating and never stopping. The concept of never stopping is one that we've seen throughout his career. I mentioned up top, Conan O'Brien Must Go as a TV show. Like, Conan knows there is no stopping. He won't stop till he's dead. He has the work ethic of fucking God for no real reason either, because it's not even like, arguably, it's not really important, but he's never gonna stop. And I take a lot of inspiration from Conan. It's not one of the areas, if I'm being completely honest with you. Not one of the areas. Do I have a work ethic? Yes, I am loyal to a fault. However, I don't think something like this happening, wherein I get the goal and then some loser rips it from me, I don't think I'd ever be the same. I don't think I could keep kindness so close to my heart after that. We get a lot of leeway into his thought process, how he deals with anxiety, turning it back into himself, which I think is really interesting. Conan always talks about how, it never goes away, the anxiety of performing, which is really comforting to someone who wants to perform and does perform, knowing that your heroes, they're fucking anxious balls too. It's really comforting. And this whole movie, once you can get past the sadness, that's really the story here, is that you have to make yourself into something for others constantly. That is a stressful notion. That is a tedious task. But if you're passionate about it and you love it, you'll get it done. It's almost impressive how willing he is to kill himself for the sake of fans and entertainment. And if it wasn't, depressing, it would be considered heroic. Throughout this entire documentary, you see Conan just exhausted. The man is beating himself to hell for no real reason apart from A, he needs to, and B, people want him to. And it's not that people want him to, beat himself to hell. It's just people want him to perform. People want him to speak up. People want him to XYZ. It's a constant battle between Conan and the environment. You'll hear him complain almost every night, who are all these people? Why are they in my dressing room? Like, I don't want to talk to these people. But to every individual who shows up, he shows respect and kindness towards. He has an addiction to connecting with people, which is such a weird thing to say because as humans, it just makes sense to want to talk to people, to want to get to know people. But that man just can't shut the fuck up. He can't fucking shut up. Another thing I really liked in this documentary is we see Sona and Andy not just as like side characters, but we see their relationship and we see their importance, People will riff on Andy for having sat on a couch for 30 years just chilling, but honestly, I think Andy is one of the most key elements to Conan's shtick. I love Andy. I think Andy has the best one-liners. His Midwest apathy, God bless it. And I think we really see him being a rock in this documentary. He's always by Conan's side. He's always having input. He's always trying to help Conan. He's just Andy. And if you don't like Andy, honestly, I think you should die. Anyways, we also see Sona, which I remember my first ever watch through, I really didn't understand their dynamic because Conan was such a piece of shit to her. But having grown up and, followed them for, God, I don't even want to say how long now. I don't like aging myself. I'm not even that old, man. I just can't do it. We know very much that they have a brother-sister dynamic, but I remember when I first watched it, I was really confused as to why Sona put up with him. Because, like, the shit he says, man. But Sona eventually starts to stick up for herself, and by the end of it, we see the love. It's not just hostility. And I think that's a really good representation of the documentary itself. It starts off angry and bitter and self-deprecating in a vastly negative space, but slowly we begin to cross over a horizon and we see joy and we see silliness and we see completion. I don't think it's any secret that Conan is an addict, addicted to people, addicted to entertaining, addicted to talking. He makes a remark where essentially he goes, I can't go from all of this to sitting and reading a Kindle, which is ironic because that's exactly what he did. He went from audiences to a little table of people. And I'm not slacking him for that. I really am not. I love Conan O'Brien as a friend. I think it's so well made and so entertaining and so productive with time. But I just think it's really ironic that this man who can't stop is starting to find new ways to keep going, even if it means getting rid of some source of fuel. He's gonna find, it's like he's gone hybrid. He used to be completely gas powered. People needed to be there. He needed the audience. Now he's kind of like, I can chill with a couple people, but I really just like creating, and I love it. I love what he's doing, and I love that he can't stop. I love that he must go. But I also dread the day where he has to stop. Not necessarily because he chooses to, but something happens and he just has to stop. I take a lot of wisdom from Conan O'Brien. It's not always good wisdom, but I do take a lot of it. The first point that I really want to take out of Conan O'Brien Can't Stop would be the phrase, act as if. Conan says that he uses this to pretend that everything is happening because it's supposed to. Act as if you're supposed to be interviewing Barack Obama. Act as if you're XYZ. And I think confidence is truly a key to life. It is a key that a lot of people don't have and a lot of people need. It's one of those things that whenever I feel like I'm somewhere I don't belong, I can just switch to and immediately notice a change in not only myself, but the environment around me and how people talk to me and how I talk to other people. Confidence really is just the strongest foundation of socializing. And the point that probably matters the most, is his ability of turning despair into prosperity. I said earlier, a lot of people would have taken this anger and sat on it. Wouldn't have moved, wouldn't have started something, would have just sat and brewed in it, getting madder and madder every single day. Wondering, why me, why me, why me? Meanwhile, Conan decided, fuck that, we're going out. And yeah, it's a part of the addiction he had with needing a crowd. But the thing about addiction is, it hurts when it hurts. One of the last things Conan ever said on his late night show was to work hard and be kind. This is one of those things that I try every single day. And this is one of those things that you see in every single scene of Conan O'Brien Can't Stop. It is the most heartbreaking tale, but every single second is just Conan working. It's almost like every single positive of this documentary has a direct negative. Conan is working so hard. Conan doesn't stop. Conan is doing what he loves. Conan is away from his family. And I think it speaks to a form of dedication that a lot of people aren't ready to give in. Personally, I don't know if I could ever match that energy. Maybe that's why I find this documentary so upsetting and so bothersome. Is that it's highlighting something that, while I actively choose to embrace, I'm also wholeheartedly not acting on. There's a lot that goes into creating a documentary like this, because a lot of critics were very harsh on it. They called it a very negative piece. The whole Jack McBrayer scene wherein Conan allegedly forces him to dance. There are so many moments where it makes Conan look like a bad guy. Conan always hitting people, Conan with his passive aggression, Conan just being Conan. And I see it. I really do see it. But it's not negative. I can feel upset about this documentary, and I do feel upset about this documentary, but I know it's not negative. It's never hurtful, it's never hateful, it's just Conan. Something else I noted whilst watching was he never puts it on the fans. Every time a fan came up to him and inquired about it, asked how he was doing, said I'm sorry, he would always just say, don't worry about it. It's okay. Meanwhile, in his dressing room, he's freaking the fuck out because it's not okay and it fucking sucks. Like, it really sucks. And it kind of plays back into him trying to kill himself to satisfy everybody else. You don't want an audience of downers. You don't want a bunch of people in a room who feel sorry for you. You want a bunch of people in a room who are excited about you and want to experience what you have to offer, not just feel pity and be miserable sitting in their own stews. Meanwhile, you're up on the stage acting like a fucking monkey dancing for peanuts. It's just not a great dynamic to endure, is the word I'm going to use there. Throwing back to the whole pre-Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend experience, because really this was the first in-depth reveal into Conan's psychology. Nowadays, he's much more open about his mental health and the way that he views himself in comedy and the way that he views himself in general and the way that he creates. He's much more open and passionate about that, and God bless him for it. He's in therapy. Love to see it. But I think when this came out, it really was just an eye-opener into the stress of what it's like being an entertainer. I think a lot of people want to head into that career because, they like attention or they want the money, but they lack the work ethic. And I can't tell you one other person who would uproot everybody and pay them out of their own pocket. Like, that is a kindness that is no longer taught. There's a relationship Conan has with anxiety that I think maybe should fall under a wisdom, which is that it never stops. If you're someone who wants to go into entertainment or you just want to be creative and you struggle speaking in front of people or you struggle knowing if something's 100% going to work out, having someone like Conan O'Brien say it never stops, it doesn't go away, is potentially one of the most comforting things ever. And you really see that shine in Conan O'Brien Can't Stop. He is a mess. He's a total mess, but he's been on TV for almost 20 years at this point, and he's still a mess, and he still cares what everybody in that audience thinks, and he still wants to give everybody the best show possible, even at his lowest moments. This documentary, it hurts. It really does hurt to watch. It gets easier as it moves on, but the first half hour is painful. The reflection of his anger being poured into a show that he doesn't even know if it's going to work. Sell the tickets first, then you build the show, was his advice. I can't imagine building a world for yourself, working so hard to be exactly where you want to be, and somebody else's greed and negativity taking it away from you because they can't say bye. I think the moral of the story is that we have way too many Lenos in this world, and we need a couple more Conans. I don't know if Conan still has resentment or bitterness over what happened. I don't know the man personally, and I would never ask him about it. But I do know that he's managed to turn a situation wherein so many people would give up into a completely new thing. He's kept up with the times in ways that nobody else could have anticipated, especially because he doesn't know how the fucking internet works. Moving from late night to podcast sucked. I'm not gonna lie. It really sucked when the Conan show was announced that it was gonna be ending. I felt just like a part of me was being taken out. But, 5 years down the line, I really love Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. And I think he was right to switch the format. And hopefully, in due time, if he gets tired of it, he'll figure out the next best thing. Because if there's one thing I know, it's that Conan O'Brien can't stop.